Welcome to the Focus on Why podcast. I'm Amy Rowlandson and I ask my guests one simple question. Why? Focusing on the importance of why, I share with you the relatable, uplifting and inspiring conversations I have with people from all walks of life. This podcast will encourage you to focus on your why to enable and empower you to achieve the success you desire. Have a purpose, have a plan, focus on why. Before we get started, are you thinking of creating a podcast or are you a podcast host already? As a podcast strategist, I can help you to launch or relaunch a purposeful and profitable podcast which will inspire, entertain and educate a global audience. Simply book in a one-to-one call with me right now via the Calendly link in the show notes, and together we'll focus on the purpose of your podcast. Today on Focus on Why, I am joined by Stuart Harris. Hello, Stuart. How are you?
Hi, Amy. I'm very well. Thanks very much. Okay.
Great. And where are you today?
I'm in my hometown. I'm what I call my home office, or as other friends of mine call it, my spare room. So I'm here, and my hometown of East Kilbride, which is just 10 miles south of Glasgow. So it's. I think these days you can be anywhere. It's like, even before the pandemic, it's like have laptop, can travel. And if I'm half an hour away from Glasgow Airport, I can be anywhere in no time at all.
It's just nice for the listeners to have the context of where you are and where you're calling from. So
yeah, well, it's lovely. And if anybody knows this neck of the woods, where I'm south of Glasgow and Ben Lomond and beautiful countryside. It's just at the other side of Glasgow. So when I come out my house, East Kilbride is high, compared to Glasgow. So I can look right over Glasgow. If it's nice in Glasgow, it's raining in East Kilbride. If it's raining in Glasgow, it's snowing in East Kilbride. But the beautiful thing is, if I get to the top of my road and I just look out and I can see the Campsies Hills and Loch Lomond and Ben Lomond, and it's beautiful, absolutely. And we get enough cold, clear days as well, So,
is your environment important for you?
No, not really. I'm used to it being wet and quite cold. You're brought up with that. I'm constantly seeing memes coming up in television. Like this post if you walk to school in the snow, and we did. You're up to your knees in snow walking to school. We didn't have these parents dropping us off in the 4x4 cars outside the school or anything like that. It was get the bus if you're lucky. If you can't get the bus, just walk. So you're brought up with that. And I've worked abroad. I've never lived abroad, unless you call Norwich, London, Leamington Spa, Farnborough. I worked in those places in a former life. When I was in the hotel industry, I was hotel management and pub management. So I travelled around a bit down south, and it's. Again, being Scottish, I'm not a massive fan of the heat, so I'd never lie on a beach. I'd rather be walking in a glen in Scotland or out looking over the coast of Scotland rather than lying on a beach or beside a pool in the burning heat of Spain or Italy, So
whilst your environment isn't necessarily that important, it sounds like it kind of is.
Well, I'm saying a lot about the environment, about how cold it is and wet it is, and I'm not really that much of a fan of the sun. I remember Billy Connolly saying that. A couple of things about the weather. There's no such a thing as bad weather, just the wrong clothes. So that was a cracker that went down well. But also the fact that Scottish people don't go from white to brown or even white to red or white to pink. They go from blue to white. If you lift up a Scotsman's arms, it's just blue veins that you see. And I've got a pal that comes up and visits me every now and again, and he says you can always tell it's summer in Scotland. The rain gets warmer.
Love it.
And we just get used to it. We don't get suntan. We just get rust.
Fabulous. Well, we're not here to talk about the weather, although, I think it's one of those things that we can do in England and Scotland is forever talk about the weather because it does affect us so much. But tell me more about what it is you're up to at the moment, Stuart.
I'm, well, just past last week, 17 years out on my own as a training consultant, speaker, coach. Over those years, mainly my main thrust of work has been training, workshop training. And then this pandemic happened a couple of years ago, and training room doors slammed shut all over the UK and probably all over the world. And it was meant to be only lasting a few months. So that's all right. I'll take a couple of months break, work on designing some new materials and marketing materials. And then thought this is going to last a bit longer than I was expecting. So I think the buzzword in our field is pivot, and so I had to get away from the idea of flying up and down north, south, east or west and doing training classes and really coming out with something much more creative. The content is still the same. The delivery mechanism's completely changed. It's now very much more, on Zoom or Teams. If it's a corporate client, they're very much a fan of Teams or Adobe Connect, and that's a new. I've put in a proposal for a really large client, which could keep me very busy till the end of the year, and that's all getting done online as well. Using Adobe Connect is what they use, which I've not used before, but that's what YouTube's for. I'll find out. I'll have that mastered by Friday. So, right.
I do love that it's very hard to find a video on something that on YouTube that doesn't exist. You can pretty much Google or YouTube anything, and it's there.
Yes, and it's that wormhole that you've got to worry about when you go in and go, I'm just going to have a look at one video, and then it starts recommending. If you like this, you'll also like that. Which I think. Now, a lot of what I've seen a lot of consultants doing with their online programs, whether it's through some platform like Kajabi or Thinkific, there's recommendations there. Even on YouTube videos, if I put YouTube videos out, the last thing I want is one of my competitors' videos suddenly popping up on their YouTube stream. So it's all, if you like this, you'll get, click on this link here and it'll take you to my part 2 version. So I think we're all getting smart to that, and to think 2 years ago, most of us couldn't even spell Zoom, never mind use Zoom. Whereas now, you just jump on, you don't even think about it. It's, you're getting your grannies and your aunties, online for Christmas quizzes and parties. For last year, I had 2 parties for my 60th. And I know that you're thinking, and I know anybody else that's seeing the video here is going, no, surely not. But yes, 60. And I had 2 parties, one for work friends and colleagues, the speakers, trainers, consultants, on the Friday night. And I got volunteers to sing, play an instrument, tell a joke, MC the event, so I could enjoy it. And then the Friday night, there was 80 people on the call, and it was fantastic, absolutely fantastic. And then the Saturday night, I had just family and close friends, and there was 90 on that one. So I do like a party, that's very much me, So I love a bit of a shindig, even if it has to be online, But I think everybody said that. I think everybody said their birthday in the last year, probably, maybe even the last 2 years, and we don't go down the pub. We don't book function rooms. It's a lot cheaper as well. And obviously, being Scottish, I'm going to fly that flag. And then when we do all get out of lockdown and we all are allowed back out to play, it'll be like a joint party with everybody chipping in. If we chip in £50 a head or whatever it will be. So we've just changed in so many different ways in the last few years. So yeah, I've changed and created a lot more online courses, and I've just launched a new online coaching program as well. So that started taking off, but it's just a massive change, which we're all going through.
So 17 years out on your own and training and workshops. What is it that you're actually training on?
I'm certainly not of the sort where somebody phones up and says, "Can you do something on double flange conflagrators?" Yes, of course I can. Let me sort it up on YouTube, and I'll put a course together for you. I'm not that. I'm very, very focused on sales and customer service, and within that, frontline management. I don't really do the exec level, but for small to medium-sized businesses that maybe don't have a training team, but they need to bring somebody in. That's certainly the case. And I think corporate has changed a lot in the last couple of years as well. I've done a lot of large programs with large corporates. And I think since lockdown, they've pulled everything in-house. And one of the clients I've had before, they said, "Oh, Stuart, we won't need you for a while. We're doing everything online." One of our internal trainers will be running master classes for 50 to 60 people at a time. And that's shock. I think that's terrible, because how can you interact with people? How can you identify particular skill gaps or challenges that some people in the room might be facing? So I'm very much a fan of a much smaller group or one-to-one, whether that's coaching programs or online or through courses. So.
And how did you decide, or how did it come about that sales and customer service was your thing?
I think it's always been there. Funnily enough, when I left school, I didn't really apply myself at school. I always wanted to know why. As will resonate with you. I'd be sitting in maths, and Mr. Van, the maths teacher, with his corduroy jacket and his leather elbow patches, "Right, you lot, we're going to do," in the roughest Glasgow accent you can imagine, "we're going to do matriculation today, or trigonometry," or whatever it would be. And my wee hand would go up in the air, and I'd ask the question, "When am I ever going to use this later on in life?" And the answer back was always, "It's part of the curriculum. Shut up and get on with it." It's those caring days of school. And as I said, I didn't really apply myself that much at school. I was good at the things that I liked doing, and I loved showing off. So if there's school plays or drama classes or anything like that, loved all that sort of stuff. And I came out of school and thought, I'm either going to be a hairdresser, because my cousin was a hairdresser, and she used to come round to my mum's once a month, and all my aunties would come round, and I'd see her collecting £10 off one and £20 off the other, and standing having a blether all night. And I thought, that looks fantastic. What a great job that is. I'll be a hairdresser. "Oh, you need qualifications." All right, okay. And it was either that or a social worker. And I wanted to work with people, help people. And when I went to colleges, they said, no, you're too young. I was 17 or 18 when I left school. "You're too young. You need to get experience. Go and work in a care home or sheltered housing or something, whatever, anything at all. And then come back in a few years' time." And of course, I'd then go to the sheltered housing or care homes or hospitals. And they say, "No, you don't have any qualifications and you're too young. Go and do that and come back in a few years' time." So as a stopgap, I got off the bus on the way home one day, right outside my local hotel, also called the Stuart Hotel. And I stuck my head in. I said, "Have you got any jobs going?" And they said, I must have been 18, because I was able to serve in bars. "Yep, we've got a job as a general assistant." And I thought, I'm on the ladder to management. This is fantastic. Little did I know that general assistant was, you one day you're on the pots and pans, then the next day you're in the bar, then the next day you're in the restaurant, then the next day you're in reception, and next day you're on the stoves in the kitchen. And I loved working in the bar because I got to make cocktails and show off. And I loved to work in the restaurant because I got to cook at tables and show off. And show off. So I'd be flambeing things. I was 18 years old. There was flambeing things, and and just loved it. And I just thought, this showing off stuff is great fun. And I worked in hotel management. I did get up to the dizzy heights of hotel management, pub management. And then after how many years? 15 years, 16 years. I was then married. My girlfriend, who became my fiance, who became my wife, who became my ex-wife, she was a nurse. And so we never got to see each other. So it was easy for me to change jobs, and there was some sales positions coming up. So I got jobs in sales and then moved into training. So I've always wanted to help people, and I've probably done more of that. Even I worked at Coca-Cola for 7 years, and even when new people were coming on board, my boss would always say, "Yeah, I'll put them out with Stuart. He knows what he's doing, and he knows how to do it by the book, rather than just make things up as they go along." And I then began to realise this is training, and I love this. And I got to a fork in the road, either going to national accounts with Coca-Cola or I go into the world of training. And that's what I did. I've found my way into training, and I've been doing that now for 20, 25 years, there or thereabouts, and love it. I wish I'd get into it much earlier. I absolutely love it. It's the best gig in the world, I think. Standing in front of 15 people, showing off and helping them and educating them and improving their sales, increasing sales and improving customer service. And that's just ticks all my boxes.
So what would have happened if your bus had stopped at a different stop? What other options did you have?
Do you know, I have never been asked that, and I've never considered it. I don't. I think it would need to be customer facing. I don't think I'm the office type of guy. I don't think I could have worked in a factory or an office. If anything, if not a hotel, maybe a shop, something like that. But out front, dealing with the customers and dealing. And I think probably the aspirational part of me would be, right, okay, fine, I'll stack shelves just now, but in a year's time, where's the leadership development program? And I was lucky to fall onto the first rung of the ladder in hotel management. Little did I know that's what general assistant was going to do and what it would lead me to. So I went through various iterations of general assistant manager, junior assistant manager, senior assistant manager, manager, and it was good. It's just great fun. Absolutely loved it. Yeah. Would I go back to it? Probably not, but every so often I'll see these programs, I think it's 4 in a bed, where people go around guest houses and it's like bed and breakfast, that sort of thing. And I thought, that looks doable, but it means getting up at 6 o'clock in the morning to make breakfast. And that's not me. I'm more of a night owl than an early bird. If I could do rather than bed and breakfast, if I could do bar and breakfast, so yeah, come into the place at 6 o'clock at night. I'll get you drunk or roaring foo, as we call it up here. And then you go to your bed, and in the morning, just let yourself out. I'll take your money in advance. Yeah, that's impossible. But yeah, bar and bed. I like the sound of that rather than breakfast.
Sounds great.
Yeah.
That's brilliant. So tell me about the showing off element. What's going on there? Because you mentioned that you like showing off, cooking at the tables, doing the cocktails, and also just the general showing off and helping people being in the best gig in the world, as you say.
Nowadays, what I've started doing, because and again, a lot of the work that I do is sales and customer service people, and they need to have a bit of pizzazz. Not necessarily, shiny, salesy person, but they've got to be able to engage with customers, keep them engaged, question them, understand what's going on. And they need a bit of personality as well. And I like to think when I'm running workshops, a bit of that rubs off. It's nice to, if I'm doing work, I did a big piece of work for a large bank a couple of years ago. And on more than one occasion, senior managers, very senior managers, would come up and sort of whisper in my ear as everybody's leaving, "It's nice to get somebody with a bit of personality." I'm a big fan. If you laugh, you learn. I'll use a lot of anecdotes, analogies, metaphors, all the good stuff, because I think that goes back to my school days. God, this is like being a psychiatrist's bed. You're making me think of the things that I've never really thought about before. But I'd often get people coming up and sort of whispering in my ear, "It's nice to get somebody with a bit of personality." Because going back to Mr. Van, he might have been the only thing that I ever learned from. It certainly wasn't matriculation or trigonometry. And it was the fact that the way that he answered my question, when am I ever going to use this? Or how would I use this? Or whatever. And I've never used matriculation or trigonometry. I've never measured the length of a hippopotamus, but it's in school days. But just to be able to go, I'm going to teach you some tips and techniques and strategies on winning customers and engaging, asking customers questions. And the reason that you would do it this way is because of such and such. So I've always got and this is why. So that's my big why, and what they're getting out of it. This is why they're doing certain things and learning certain things, so they put it into practice. And it's great to hear managers come back to me afterwards and say, "I've just been listening to some of our calls. We record our calls and been listening to some of our calls. And a lot of the things that you said in class, they're using that. It's stuck for the first time ever, that's music to my ears." Yeah. Would I say that's even better than the money? No, I wouldn't. I would be totally lying if I said that. But that's a major reward to get people to say, "Yeah, that works," and it's making a difference.
And it's interesting because the work that you do, you don't get to see the instant results because they do happen in a different environment. So you don't have that joy. You have to rely on the feedback from the line managers to come back with you. I'd love for you to incorporate the measuring the length of a hippopotamus into your work. Honestly, that would be fantastic. To actually know that school was useful at some point.
Yes, yeah, and so the whole thing about I'll no doubt get to this as well, but as part of my showing off is concerned, I've not done it since pandemic because the place are shut, but I've done a bit of stand-up comedy. So I've gone out and in fact, my first proper gig was an open mic night in Glasgow, in the Glasgow Comedy Club, and it was an open mic. People were paying for it, paying a tenner, but the guy came in and said, "Right, you're on first," which wasn't me, surprisingly. "Stuart, you've never done it before, but you seem to know what you're doing. I just heard you in the bar. You're on second." And I think I get 10 minutes or something like that. And then you're on. I don't know, a dozen people or something. And he said, "And we've got a gap at 9 o'clock because somebody wants to come in and try some new material." He's a local comedian. You might have heard of him, Frankie Boyle. So my first ever gig, I opened for Frankie Boyle. And yes, that's on my CD, on my website. So, yeah. And part of the routine is talking about what did you learn from school, and so I have used the hippopotamus joke before.
Fabulous. Yeah. I'm delighted that you have, because absolutely, I mean, it's just ridiculous, isn't it? The things that we had to do, but some of them just purely because they're in the curriculum. So let's go back to, this is your big why. You said this is why you're doing what you're doing. What's going to happen next? What's on the plan? What's on the agenda? Do you have a big mission, or is it just see how things go?
I've got a much bigger mission now than I would have had maybe 2 years ago. 2 years and probably previous to that, the sort of world that I'm in, it used to be as long as you knew what you're doing for the next 3 months or maybe the next 6 months, that would have been good because you knew that work would be coming in, whether it's repeat business or whether it's new clients as well. And that bubble gets severely pricked in the last couple of years because it's not a matter of the work isn't there. It's not falling on my lap. It's never fallen on my lap. You got to work for it to get it. But nowadays it's a matter of, okay, fine, getting other things in place. So there are other ways to earn money. There's a big line about, making money while you sleep. Whether that's, books, or whether it's online courses, or whether it's live master classes or coaching programs, or whatever that might well be. So whereas before it would be much more I've got my training classes all lined up for the rest of the year. I've certainly taken my eye off the world of keynote speaking. I've done a fair bit of it in the past, but I don't see many people getting back into a conference room with 300 other people and then rubbing shoulders over the coffee and muffins at break time, and then sitting knee to knee in an auditorium. I'm sure it will come back, and I'm sure other people will say, of course it's going to come back, and you've got to be positive about it. I don't think it's going to be coming back for a while. I think a lot of businesses are saying, no, wait a minute. We've survived quite well over the last couple of years. We don't need the big 300 people in the room shindig and all the expenses round about it, flights, accommodation, gala dinner, all that sort of stuff. I think people, certainly in the next couple of years, they'll certainly be looking at things like hybrid options. So it might be, rather than the 300 people attending the conference, what you maybe get now is the top 50 people within the organisation, the movers and the groovers and the shakers that make the decisions and they do all the strategy stuff. They will be in the room, possibly with the speaker, and the other 250 people will be sitting in their home office, or Neil said sitting in their pajamas. They could be doing that as well, but just sitting watching what's going on, not really that engaged, which is a concern. Are they going to be as effective as they were previously? I don't think so. Is it going to give the big rah-rah for all the organisation getting together? No, but I think when they do the sums, they need Mr. Van to do the maths to find out how much are we spending in this and how much improvement are we getting. It's that. I think that's yet to be seen, but I think it will take a while.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. The hybrid audience is still work in progress. I mean, it's been around for a while, but it's just a case of people having the energy to stay on Zoom. I'm doing quite a few hosting of events in the evening, and people are literally dropping. You can see them, they've just had enough of being on a computer. I think it's 11 hours a day that we're now on computers, which is, ridiculous, really.
Mm-hmm. And it doesn't go away. I live myself, and I know that if I'm sitting watching television, my phone's within arm's reach. So if I'm watching something and whatever, something happens in a program, I've got to comment on that because everybody's hanging on every word that I'm going to say. Of course they're not, but people will comment back. They'll go, no, I totally disagree with you. Oh yeah, I saw that, whatever it was. But your phone's with, one of the lines that was introduced when I was at Coca-Cola, there was a big, massive campaign. There was a new chief exec at Coca-Cola called Summerfield K. Johnson III. It might surprise you that he came from America. And he had a massive campaign to introduce vending machines and glass-fronted coolers into shops, and chip shops and schools was a massive challenge. Colleges, workplaces, all this sort of stuff. Basically 24-hour service, ideally, with the vending machines. And everybody in Coca-Cola, particularly in the UK, said, how are we going to do that? We're doing quite well as it is. We're selling a lot of the brown fizzy stuff. And his line was, we need to put our products within arm's reach of desire. Now, that's come from an American. And we sort of balked at that, and what a lot of rubbish. And it was then, no, you need to double your volumes and double your profits. And the only way you're going to do that is getting it cold and getting it close to people. That was the same with vending machines then, and nowadays it's, I've got my phone to hand, so as soon as you wake up in the morning, you're looking at your phone. You're throughout the day, you're online, you're doing whatever it is you need to do, even preparing materials. If you're not live, you're still constantly got a screen in front of you. at least one, maybe two or three.
Yeah, and the vending machine, as you said, 24-hour service, it goes back to what you were saying about how you want to make money while you sleep. And essentially that's what he was creating there.
Exactly. Then. And this was that would have been 97, 98, round about then, that he was talking about that. Availability. That's exactly what he was talking about.
So the mission is to do more, to do in different ways, to engage your audience in different ways. And you mentioned right at the beginning, again, that pivot into a new space and adapt and shift to be more creative in how you deliver, or the different delivery mechanisms that you use. What else other than your work keeps you alive and kicking and enjoying life?
Litter picking. Bet you weren't expecting that one. It was my 60th last year. Within a week, I was diagnosed with diabetes type 2, or as I like to say, diabetes FB. And that's diabetes type fat. And I'll let you fill in the B word yourself. And I had to lose weight. I had to be careful what I'm doing. So I immediately became a pescatarian. I had stopped eating beef, pork, and lamb for a few years because of global conservation, more so than anything else. And when I went back up the road that night, I checked in my freezer and I had one chicken breast. So I had that for my tea that night. And that, I'd like to say that was the last meat I've had. It's not. If I go to a friend's house and they go, "We've forgotten you're pescatarian, we didn't get any fish, we've only got whatever it might well be," I'll take that. I'm not going to not take anything. But if it's my choice, if I'm cooking and if I'm at a restaurant, I'll always go for the fish option or vegetarian option, which I never thought I would say. I'm doing a lot more exercise. And again, that week, I was out doing a lot more walking around. And the more I walked around, the more litter I saw on the streets or beside roads or, hedgerows, whatever. And of course, it's people just throwing rubbish out the car windows. And in East Kilbride, I've got a Facebook group. And I went on, I said, is MD still proud of East Kilbride? We were very proud when we were kids growing up. It was a new town. Is MD still proud? Because I'm just ashamed of the amount of rubbish that's out in the streets. And somebody said, "Oh, you need to have a look at this East Kilbride Community Litter Pickers Facebook group. It was brand new. It's only started 2 weeks ago." And I joined that, and I'm now in the, for want of a better expression, it's a committee, but we don't call it a committee. Somebody said, "I hate the word committee. Can we call it an action group?" So I'm a member of the action group, and we organise big events, some individual events. We've got a campaign running just now called the 5x5 Pledge, where we've got 50 people who haven't been out litter picking before. We've provided them with litter pickers and bags, and they'll pick up a bag of rubbish for the next 5 weeks. So it's 5 bags in 5 weeks. And we reckon that if we just get that, and we're already getting much more than that, we will get round about, I did a calculation just on those numbers, 50 times 5 times 5, and it would be something like £1,700 of rubbish picked off the streets. And it's just heartbreaking to see, So say yesterday afternoon, I was out freezing cold, picking up a load of rubbish on a pathway beside a motorway, and I've always been a bit of a hippie, not a long-haired hippie, but a hippie, and so conservation, I'm really into that. Last year, for my birthday, I said to people, "Don't get me anything. I don't need anything." And people said, "Well, we'll make a donation to a charity." And then somebody came back and said, "What about if we donate a tree in your name?" And she sent me a link, and there's a website called treesforlife.org, I think it is. And you can get a grove of trees in your name, and people can contribute to that. And for my birthday, I got, I think it's about 250 trees donated to be planted. in my name, in my grove. It's all about me. And it's and they're trying to reforest the Caledonian Glen in the Highlands of Scotland. And you see these magnificent pictures and the planting going on, and it won't be anything. It won't be like a fully grown forest for 20 years. But just to see on the map, that's your plot, and you go, I've done that. I'm making a difference. And I think I'm probably much more into that now than I've ever been. And, so getting off all the meats and getting my trees planted and picking up my rubbish, that's my hobby. And I can't do stand-up comedy just now because all the places are shut. So that's...
And the diabetes is in control now?
Yes. I did a second blood test, and the numbers basically went from, it wouldn't mean anything to you, well, it might do, but I got my blood test results back. Of course, it's all done by the phone now, and drop it off in a box and don't talk to anybody. And the blood tests had dropped from 14 mmOLs. I'm going to ask you questions about this afterwards. From 14 down to 8. And even my poor maths tells me 14 down to 8 is good in anybody's number. So they were over the moon with that. My cholesterol's way down. And I feel much better for it as well, much healthier and fitter. I wouldn't start running a marathon or anything like that yet, but it's certainly going in the right direction. And people are noticing a difference as well. When I do meet people, I met a couple of different people yesterday when I was out of the shops, and they both said, "My God, you're looking great. What's happened to you?" That if those that can see the video, just imagine how bad I must have looked in the past. But I'm feeling good with it. I'm feeling really, and I'm finding the switch to pescatarian really easily. No challenge at all. The only thing that I do miss is, and obviously I'm off all the carbs, and the only thing that I really miss out of all the things that I've stopped eating is toast. Cheap white toast. The cheaper, the better. And it's none of that healthy stuff with seeds and all that nonsense. Just give me the white plastic stuff. That's the only plastic I take these days. Yeah.
I can't remember the last time I had a slice of white toast with a little bit of melted butter on. I cannot remember. It must have been years, if not decades.
Yeah, I had to stop off. I had to pop into a cafe. I was meeting somebody and they were running late, so I just went and grabbed a coffee one morning. And the person on the table beside me, not only did they have the full breakfast with anything that could come off a cow was on the plate, but the thing that caught my eye, they had a side plate with 2 slices of white toast with thick butter on it. And even now, I'm drooling at the thought of it. So thanks very much for turning me back.
Sorry, no, not guilty. So the journey that you shared today started in the Stuart Hotel. It's in the Harris Grove or the Harris Glen right now with all your trees.
Yep.
And we don't know what's next just yet, but it sounds great.
Things have certainly been put into place. I don't know if I said earlier on, but I've got a massive pitch in for a major piece of work which could keep me chock-a-block from now till into next year with a large client. And in the last week, I've probably had about 4 people in contact with me. And, Stuart, we need you in to do such and such. We've not seen you for a couple of years. Now's the time to come back. So I definitely think things are turning. Definitely think now there's a light at the end of the tunnel, which definitely wasn't there for the last couple of years. A lot of people that had a lot of my smaller clients, the solopreneurs and the small and medium-sized businesses, last year they were going, our guys are on furlough. We don't know what's happening. They're working from home. Why should we do training just now when they're not going to be back? And I do a lot of work with call centres and offices that I've got help desks, and a lot of stuff's done on the phone. These guys aren't even picking the phone up now. And why risk putting, do the training just now? Let's put it off and let's put it off and let's put it off. And now, of course, it's like waiting for a bus. Everybody comes along at the same time. But that's the gig. That's if you want a Monday to Friday 9 to 5 job, don't do this. Get this job. That's it. And I wouldn't change it. I wouldn't change it. Yeah, so.
Absolutely. Well, I think you've done Mr. Van proud with your various numbers here, with your 5x5 pledge. That sounds great. And your £1,700 worth of rubbish per year, and hearing your numbers going down in your diabetes.
That's not per year. That's just over the 5 weeks. It'll be
okay. Over 5. All right. I want to know the numbers for over the year as well, then, please.
Right,
just kidding. But you're certainly the pride of East Kilbride for now, and I love that. That's brilliant. So, how would people get in contact with you, Stuart? They've heard what you've had to say, and they'd love to hear more about how you can help them with their sales training.
Well, simply they can either just drop me an email at the Stuart Harris. Of course, it's got to be the Stuart Harris. It can't just be Stuart Harris. Stuart at thestuartharris.com. And there is a reason behind that. StuartHarris.com and StuartHarris.co.uk are used by one's a photographer and one's a gardener. And so it was gone by the time I went looking for it. So I had to go with thestuartharris.com, Stuart at thestuartharris.com. And also, if you want to know about the course, the coaching program that I'm doing, you can, if you look at the Ultimate Sales Academy.com. Punchy name, I know, but it does what it says in the tin. And in that, you'll get an introductory 15-20 minute video just with some quick tips on some, how to counteract some of the challenges that salespeople have. And that's not necessarily just people on the phone. That's anybody that's speaking to a customer, whether it's face-to-face or running a team or running a business that have a sales element to them. So that's at the ultimatesalesacademy.com. And where we find me there as well.
Fabulous. Well, make sure you use the right email. Otherwise, you'll get your roses pruned or get some photos taken instead of getting your sales and customer service.
Photographs of your roses. That would be lovely.
Yeah, all good. Stuart, thank you so much for sharing why you do what you do. Do you have some final words for the audience, please?
Something that I'll always, I'll give you my final line when I give you my final line. But something that I got when I worked for Coca-Cola. My boss at Coca-Cola was a best boss ever, a guy called Rob Cayley. And we had been in to see a client at the time I was doing national accounts. And we'd been in to see a client, one of the big supermarkets, and he was a brand new boss to me. And he jumped into the car and we're about to drive off to go and see somebody else. And he said, wait a minute, just turn the engine off. Just before you go, what's your MLD? And I looked at him and I said, I don't have a clue what you mean. What do you mean by my MLD? I hate people that use 3-letter acronyms, or TLAs as some people call them. And I said, what do you mean? And he said, okay, fine. What went well on that call? And what could you have done more of? Well, that went really well. Maybe I could ask even more questions or even more such and such. Okay, fine. What could you have done less of? I could maybe have done less of this, that, that. Okay, fine. And if you had to do that call again next week, what would you do differently? And it was a completely different mindset. The first two are focused on what's just happened. The last one is, blue sky thinking, in an ideal world, what could you do? And I've used that MLD model, certainly in every training course that I've ever done since then. I always finish it and it's a coaching model, a feedback model, and a self-evaluation model. So even now, when I come off this, I will ask myself, what's my MLD from the call with Amy there? What could I have done more of? What could I have done less of? And if we had to do the call again next week, what would I do differently? And it's just the best model I've ever come up with. And I've not come up with it, but I have. I'm not going to say I stole it from Rob, but I learned it from Rob. And I always give him credit for it as well. So that's my big tip and takeaway. I suppose the last thing that I always love to finish my training classes on is just by saying, I'd love to say it's been a pleasure. And then I usually screw my face up, meaning it wasn't, but I'd love to be able to say that. So I'd love to say it's been a pleasure. Of course it has. Lovely, lovely, lovely chatting to you, Amy, again.
Thank you for listening to Focus on Why with me, Amy Rowlandson. To show your appreciation and to help other listeners understand what value you have received from tuning in today, please leave me an Apple Podcast 5-star review. Remember, the conversation doesn't end here. To keep it going, connect with me on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook or Twitter, or join the inspiring, uplifting and positive Focus on Why Facebook group. All the links are in the show notes. Have a purpose, have a plan, focus on why.